My memories of love hang upon high stars. All the souls I've lost to tears now the autumn jars. And the air around me thickens with their song. Sing again their nameless tunes, sing again and strong. Willows in September touch the water clear, set among the rushes tall of the flowing year. Rising up from sunlit past comes the shadowed sigh, running toward me silently, love to fortify. Many are the graceful hearts hung upon this tree, and it seems there's room for mine on these branches free. And the sky above the tree, whether wet or bright, is my ease and comforting, my good news and light. The wisdom of Mark Bellatini. Welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. Let's kindle the symbol that begins each of our services together. To the chalice cup with the flame, let us say, we light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Not on creeds is our community built, neither are the bonds between us, but by covenants, agreements about the ways that we wish to see the beloved community come alive among us and all over creation. Join me in these words, even if it's your first time. You're very welcome. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another. You're divine, my divine. 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 Where you go, I will go. Beloved, where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go. Beloved, where you go, I will go. I ask my sister, people, my people, your people, my people. your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. My people, your people are my people. Where you go, I will go. Children, where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go. Children, where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Your people are my people. Your people are my people. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. My people. You're divine, my people. Where you go, I will go, sister. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, ancestor. Where you go, I will go. Your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Your people are my people. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. My people. You're divine, my divine. Where you are, my children. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go. Divine, my divine. Your children, my people. Where you go, my people. Where you go, my people. Your people are my people. Your divine, my people. Your people are my people. Your people are my people.
The rabbit listened. One day, Taylor decided to make something. Something new. Something special. Something amazing. Taylor was so proud. But then, out of nowhere, things came crashing down. The chicken was the first to notice. Cluck, cluck, what a shame. I'm so sorry this happened. Let's talk about it. Cluck, cluck. But Taylor didn't feel like talking, so the chicken left. Next came the bear. How horrible. I bet you feel so angry. Let's shout about it. Grrr, rawr. But Taylor didn't feel like shouting, so the bear left. The elephant knew just what to do. Trumpeta, I can fix this. We just need to remember exactly the way things were. But Taylor didn't feel like remembering, so the elephant also left. One by one they came. The hyena. Let's laugh about it. The ostrich. Let's hide and pretend nothing happened. The kangaroo. What a mess. Let's throw it all away. And the snake. Shh. Let's go knock down someone else's. But Taylor didn't feel like doing anything with anybody. So eventually they all left until Taylor was alone. In the quiet, Taylor didn't even notice the rabbit, but it moved closer and closer until Taylor could feel its warm body. Together they sat in silence until Taylor said, Please stay with me." The rabbit listened. The rabbit listened as Taylor talked. The rabbit listened as Taylor shouted. The rabbit listened as Taylor remembered and laughed. The rabbit listened to Taylor's plans to hide, to throw everything away, to ruin things for someone else. Through it all, the rabbit never left. And when the time was right, the rabbit listened to Taylor's plan to build again. "I can't wait," Taylor said. "It's going to be amazing." The end.
Today's reading is entitled Facing the Fear, Trusting Love by Reverend Manish Mishra-Marzetti. Every day, as leaders within a spiritual community, we must realize that our actions and inactions affect dozens, if not hundreds, of lives. How do we prioritize the list of pressing needs? What do we have time to get to today? What will have to wait yet another day before the needed time emerges? Will those decisions mean that someone who needs care and support might not receive it today? Will we meet our fundraising and budgetary goals or fall short? Will someone leave our Sunday service feeling less welcome than they should? Will we have enough volunteers for our religious education classes? The possibility of failure abounds. We are engaged in a fallible human enterprise, but it is one that simultaneously transcends our finitude. Amidst the uncertainty, amidst the risk of failure, can we remember why we stepped forward? To make a difference in someone's life, to help build and create healthy community, to share our gifts and talents with the world around us, to be the best that we can be and bring out the best in others. Grounded in these intentions, it's never possible to fail. The world needs every bit of good that each one of us has to offer. Do what you can. Trust that the gifts offered in love will be received in the spirit of love. Trust that what we are contributing to is far greater than any one of us. Trust that even when we fall short, the good that we are able to do matters greatly.
As our holiday weekend draws to a close, I found myself appreciating with poignancy the story that we heard a bit earlier, the one with the young boy in need of solace, in need of comfort, and finding it in a rabbit, the rabbit who listened, the rabbit who lent its presence and nuzzled up against the boy. Oh, how my own heart yearns for the simplicity and the ordinariness of such interactions, the ability to be with a coworker or an acquaintance, a friend, somebody we consider family of choice or extended family members, to be with them in person and experience in that a shared laugh, a smile, a glance, maybe the warmth of a hug as we greet or depart, or a caring, friendly hand on a shoulder. Such ordinary, day in, day out interactions disrupted by the time that we're in, for very good public health reasons, but disrupted nonetheless. I found myself drawn to the writing of an academic by the name of Dr. Amy Banks this week. Dr. Banks, a former instructor at Harvard Medical School, and who's written many books, one of which is entitled Wired to Connect. in that particular book. She cites a 2006 study by Purdue University in which the authors of that study found that up to 25% of the individuals in their study indicated that they didn't have a single person, a single human being in their life that they felt close to. I mean, that's heartbreaking and astonishing, and also to a certain degree, not surprising. What that points to is a level of societal loneliness and disconnection that we could call an epidemic of its own. Prior to the pandemic that we're currently in, there was already an epidemic level of loneliness and disconnection that many of us were navigating. Add on top of that, layer on top of that, the pandemic, a time of forced, imposed distance and separation and isolation, exacerbating a societal tendency, unaddressed need that was already there. Dr. Banks goes on to describe how we human beings are biologically wired for connection. We, in fact, need connection with other human beings. She, as a medical researcher, describes this in terms of the nervous system, and many of you who know biology better than I probably do, you already know all about this, the difference between the sympathetic aspect of the nervous system and the parasympathetic aspect. The sympathetic aspect reflecting that heightened activation level when we're in danger or in a crisis, all our inner reserves getting really amped up to deal with and confront something that feels threatening to us, versus the parasympathetic aspects of the nervous system, which in many ways are the exact opposite of that. It's gentler, calmer, grounded, stiller place of energy. And what Dr. Banks writes about is how we human beings, through positive and meaningful interactions with others, so not the interactions in which somebody is being unkind to us, uncivil to us, mean-spirited or angry to us, those types of interactions activate the sympathetic nervous system. They put us on high alert. The meaningful, positive, caring, affirming, loving interactions activate the parasympathetic aspects of the nervous system. They calm us down. They ground us. Rather than being on high alert, we feel affirmed. We feel seen or held in the regard of another. We feel like our own existence has worth, dignity, and meaning for others. And in that, we calm down. There's a calmness in that. In the calmness, in the gentleness, often possibilities expand for us. Our ability to show up as a loving and caring person for others is greater from the place of feeling cared for ourselves than from the heightened place when we're on high alert. We have greater capacity to show up as love and compassion as caring. We have greater capacity from the calmness and gentleness of the parasympathetic nervous system to look at complex life problems creatively, broadly, constructively. Ideas come to us that we might not have otherwise had, possibilities, solutions, ways forward. We're able to think about the more complex problems of our life and feel like we have capacity to engage with them. This activation of the parasympathetic human nervous system, grounded in positive human connection, can be from our closest and dearest loved ones, from a best friend, from a spouse. Doesn't have to be. Even a new or burgeoning connection, somebody we're just starting to get to know, if in that interaction there's a sense of mutual regard, mutual care, acceptance, affirmation, even a relatively newer connection can have all the same positive benefits for us as a human being. As such, community is absolutely and intrinsically one of the places where we can find positive human connection of all kinds, whether it is a newer connection or over time, a deeper connection that has had time to grow and flourish. Human community is a place where we can find that. Now, just as Dr. Banks notes, not every one-on-one interaction evokes the best potential, the best possibility of those interactions. Some interactions put us on high alert. Other one-on-one interactions ground us, calm us, center us, calm the inner energy. The same is true in community. And in the reflection on how this works in community, I turned to the wisdom of one of my favorite poets, Mark Nepo. He's a fellow Michigander and just a brilliant writer. I adore his way of thinking and writing about things, his sense of poetry. His 2018 book, entitled More Together Than Alone, is just a gorgeous study of human community and the best of human potential within community. I highly encourage us as Unitarian Universalists, if you have the time or the interest to dig into this book, it's a stunningly beautiful articulation of what human community can be. In this book, More Together Than Alone, Mark Nepo draws on a historical situation in the year 1857. Imagine, if you will, the London Philological Society. Now, we're in the 19th century, the mid-19th century, the esteemed London Philological Society, devoted to the nature of language and linguistics, is meeting to embark on a project, the project being the eventual development of what would become the Oxford English Dictionary, the first publication of its kind, capturing how the English language is used, providing definitions for words. Such a project had never been undertaken before, and the members of the Philological Society had an important decision in front of them. Do they prescribe how words are used? Prescribed. Tell us how words are used. This is the correct, this is the appropriate way to use the word. Or do they describe? Description, not the same as prescription. Description, capturing how people actually already are using particular words. So embedded in this is a multiplicity of definition, right? That's how we wind up with a word that has 5-part definitions, and often it can be very different, nuanced usages depending on the context. It also implies that the usage of language evolves and changes over time. It is not fixed. The esteemed members of the Philological Society make the decision to draw on the concept of description and not prescription. And in drawing on description, very intentionally so, they draw on and coin a term. Use determines meaning. How words are actually being used determines meaning. Usage varies, and usage evolves and changes over time. Thus was born the Oxford English Dictionary, which is, by definition, revised and updated continuously to capture the evolving uses of the English language and specific terms within it. So Mark Nepo draws on this historic example and points out that this tendency between prescription and description exists within human community. So think of our own Unitarian Universalist communities, which are incredibly diverse, very broad. We have our 7 Unitarian Universalist principles. I refer to them as ethically oriented principles. That's how they read and feel to me. Intentionally, by design, leaving room, expansive room, for those who arrive at our doors, metaphoric shores, if you will, to then bring with them interpretations of those ethical principles for their own personal life that fit and work for them, and the openness for folks to draw on scriptural traditions, should they so choose, theological traditions, should they so choose, philosophical traditions, ethical traditions, nonfiction writing, poetry, art, music, painting, drawing, sculpture, any and every creative human expression that we might want to draw on in interpreting and living into our 7 principles is permitted for each of us by design, by intentionality. So then look what happens after that. We often come into UU community, and I've been a UU Unitarian Universalist for 20 to 25 years. I'm sure many of you have been in our faith tradition even longer than that. It's not uncommon in Unitarian Universalism for us to then begin prescribing for one another. This is how, let me tell you, this is how you should be living into Unitarian Universalism. By the way, it often mimics how I've come to understand it personally. But my personal understanding, I'm not going to take that and prescribe it for you, irrespective of whether that prescription fits for you or not. This is often a root of conflict in many of our UU communities, this tendency to become prescriptive. Here's what Mark Nepo has to say about this tendency to become prescriptive in community which inherently holds this necessary and most beautiful potential for human connection, the potentiality that we yearn for and need, we interject into it a prescriptive tendency. Here's what Mark Nepo says about that. He says, history proves that we oppress each other. Wow, look at the strength of that language. We oppress each other when we prescribe how other human beings should live together and how human communities should function. We oppress one another when we do that. He goes on to say, and we give each other tools. We empower each other when we describe with respect and reverence how other human beings actually live together and how human communities actually work. From Mark Nepo's understanding, the prescription, the telling, the imposing on others of our own wisdom that we've arrived at, becoming a form of oppression, whereas the act of description, which often involves multiplicity, just as the Oxford English Dictionary contains multiplicity of definitions for any one word, the description creates tools, creates expansiveness, it creates empowerment, a multiplicity of ways of living into a thing. I found this very compelling, quite intriguing, actually. And I thought, well, I've been a UU for a couple decades now. What would it look like if I, as one Unitarian Universalist, wanted to arrive at a description, not a prescription, a description of Unitarian Universalist community? Here are my notes on that. Let's see. And this is my personal sense. I invite you to engage in this exercise yourself and ask yourself as you do, are you prescribing for others or are you describing? It's subtle, but such a critical difference. These are my notes on description. You can see if it resonates with you. And if it does, great. If not, take it as one UU's perspective. I have a 4-part definition. Unitarian Universalist community is a place where, part 1, human diversity of experience and perspective is centered. I already noted, we're inherently a broad-based, permission-giving tradition. Find the specifics that speak to you, that bring alive our principles, and draw on that languaging, art, music, theology, philosophy, ethics, whatever it is, draw on the thing that speaks to you and bring it. That is inherently a highly diverse tradition. Human diversity of experience and perspective is centered. That means that also intrinsically no one thread or strand is centered exclusively. We rotate We take turns at highlighting different ways of stepping into our tradition, never holding one as exclusive or normative for everybody else. That's my part one. Human diversity of experience and dignity is centered. My part two to that definition, Unitarian Universalist community is a place where love is made manifest. This is one of the things that's very near and dear to my heart. We love the diversity of what we can draw on and bringing alive our own sense of what it means to be human. And while that is often rooted in discussion and debate in the realm of ideas and in artistry and art craft, we take all of that, we channel all of the wisdom and strength that we derive from any and all of that, and we channel it into action, into embodiment. Love is made manifest. We show up. We show up, making a difference in one another's lives, in the life of our community, and the broader world beyond that. So important, such an important part of our tradition. We've always done that. Love is made manifest amidst us. My third part, Unitarian Universalist community is a place where mistakes are made, or I don't really like the word mistakes all the time. Things are imperfect. We don't get things perfectly right. Here's the beauty of that. We know we human beings grow and evolve the most from the things we get wrong, that don't click, that we sometimes refer to as a mistake, something that didn't quite work out. Those experiences impel us towards self-examination and evolution and growth on a personal level. And through that, through having others companion us in a community, in a communal kind of way too. It provides opportunities for learning and growing beyond who we are today. Unitarian Universalist community, my part three, is a place where mistakes are made or we live into our commitments imperfectly. My final and part four, Unitarian Universalist community, is a place where nothing is static. Look at the 200+ year history of who we are. We are a dialectical tradition, inherently so. We have always been that way. Originally, part and parcel of the New England Puritan tradition, liberal, progressive Christians emerge in dialectic with Puritanism, breaking off, forming a separate denomination. The liberal Christians in dialectic over time with what emerged as a mystical sense of transcendentalism, unmediated experiences of the divinity within us and in nature, in the world around us. Dialectic movement, evolution, learning, and growth. That transcendentalist iteration over time, another 10, 20, 30 years, interacting with concepts of religious pluralism. Well, if divinity exists inside us and the world all around us, that must be true across philosophies, ethics, theologies, and religions. We begin to arrive at pluralistic understandings in dialectic with the transcendentalism. That religious pluralism, over time, another generation or so, being in dialectic with even more expansive understandings of humanity. What might it be like to develop a universal sense of religion that could appeal to anyone, spirituality, ethics, framing that anyone could step into, captured in the humanist movement of the early 20th century, and on. We have never been a static tradition. We are a movement that has constantly been in movement. And that dialectic represents our growth and learning and evolution. We have never turned any one of the waypoints, any one point of wisdom, into an idol that we then look over our shoulder towards the past, worshiping. Rather, we take the wisdom that we've encountered along the way, the best of it, maintaining the best, but ever committed to our dialectic pattern of constant evolution and growth and learning. It's a beautiful thing. My four-part definition of Unitarian Universalist community. Take it if it's helpful, and more importantly, exactly as our tradition intends, come up with your own. If you had to come up with a description, not a prescription, that's the critical piece I'd invite you to really hold and be in profound self-reflection around. How would you describe what actually is without prescribing for others what they should be doing? You know, this potential of community, as Mark Nepo says, that we can wind up hurting and oppressing one another. No doubt, that is one of the failings of community throughout time. And yet when we are attentive to that possibility, careful that that is not what we are trying to do and live into and bring alive, my gosh, the power and potential of who we can be, the way that we can show up, the power of love to touch the lives of others, to be a force of transformative good through the simple act of affirming the dignity of another, allowing them to feel that, absorb that, calm down whatever it is that they're holding, needing to navigate in their own life, being present to them in that way, allowing them to then step into the most expansive possibilities that their own life may hold. This is the promise and potential of Unitarian Universalism. Let us live into the healing power of community, the transformative power of community, each of us, to the best of our ability. May it be so. Beloveds, as our time together draws to a close, I invite you to join us, members of our community, in continuing conversation in what we refer to as our social time. That time commences immediately upon the conclusion of the live stream of this service every Sunday. In addition, if you have found this time together in community to be meaningful, we invite you to visit our congregation's giving page. Everything we do, everything we are, is only possible through the financial generosity of each of you, member, friend, occasional attendee, however you consider yourself and define yourself. Every act of generosity supports the ongoing good work of this community. If you will now, join me as we close out this time. On this holiday weekend, dedicated to the concept of connection, feeling gratitude for others that we're connected to in positive ways, loving, supportive, mutually affirming ways, go forth knowing that this community is one such source of love and meaning connection for me, for you, for each of us, just as it should be. None of us is alone. None of us is alone, even across these digital wires. We have one another and are with one another. And in the beauty and the strength of the best possibilities of that connection lies our own expansiveness, the best of who each of us can be. Offer that. At a time in which our world needs that, others experiencing loneliness and isolation need that, offer that. It's a gift. It's a blessing. It lies within you, within me, within each of us. Go in peace, offering the best of yourself, being held in the virtual embrace of this community until we meet again.